In the first episode of Squid Game, you get introduced to Song. He's a father of one who doesn't live with his child. He lives at home with his mother, and I hate to say it, but the guy's a loser. He's had a bunch of failed businesses, he's in debt up to his eyeballs to loan sharks, and he has a massive gambling addiction. So much so that his mother will actually hide her debit card so he can't end up taking out funds from her bank account and using it at the horse track. Although Sung is able to do that anyway. It's the day of his daughter's birthday, and he really needs a gift for her. So he decides not just to take the money and buy one. No. He's going to go to the racetrack, bet it, and hope that he wins big to buy her something that she really, really wants. Now, at first, it's rough, but then all of a sudden, he does end up hitting big. He ends up winning a whole bunch of money, and he is on cloud 9. The problem is, his debtors end up coming for him. When Song exits the off-track betting facility, he is calling his daughter. He's saying, we're going to meet for dinner. You can get whatever you want. But then when he sees his creditors, he takes off running, trying to avoid them. He's so out of sorts, he ends up knocking into a girl and losing that money. So when his creditors eventually do end up catching up to him, he's got nothing to show for it, which comes as a big surprise. And they're out for blood. I mean, they're threatening to do real bodily harm to Song if he doesn't pay up. While he's holding back tears, begging for his life, telling these people that he will pay them back, he ends up getting a bit of a break. The one loan shark says, okay, I'm going to give you till next month to pay me back, but if you don't, you're going to owe me your organs. And he makes Song sign a contract. Song, though, is so pathetic that he actually asked the loan sharks, as they're leaving, to borrow more money, because he lost everything when he knocked into that girl. The loan sharks don't give it to him, so he has to go back to the off-track betting's window and ask the girl for the tip that he gave her when he won big. He ends up using that money to go to a claw machine and winning a prize that he can give his daughter. And even though his daughter is pretty young, she's probably 6 or 7, you can tell just by her face that even she knows her dad is a loser. Especially when she opens up the present and it's a gun. Now, that was something that Song did not expect to pull out of a claw machine. And in fairness, when he did pull the prize out, it wasn't a box, but it's something that's pretty tough to recover from. And Song tries to. He tries to make up a reason on why he got his daughter a gun until she pulls the trigger and turns out the gun is actually a lighter. All she really wants, though, is for her dad to stop smoking. So he pinky promises her that her present next year will be just that he will finally quit smoking cigarettes. Dad of the year. He goes and drops off his daughter, who's sleeping at this point, to her mom's place. Her mom has that look of, damn, why did I ever have sex with this dude? Which is a look that every woman I've ever been with has as well. But it's just, Song isn't a guy that you have a lot of faith in. He's someone that even when he does get an opportunity, he seems to screw it up. And a prime example of that is what comes next. As he's waiting to take the train home from his daughter's place, a man approaches him, very well dressed in a suit, and gives him an offer that's way too good to pass up. He wants to play a game called Dodgeball. Each player has one paper square. Player A puts his square on the ground, and player B takes his square and throws it as hard as he can at player A's square to try to flip it. If he flips it, he wins. The man in the suit offers Song $100,000 if he can win, and Song quickly takes him up on it. But Song loses. And Song can't exactly pay $100,000. So the man says, okay, well, I'll slap you. Every time you lose, I'll just slap you instead of taking your money. And they play for a while. Song's face is beat up. But finally Song wins. And he gets the $100,000, and he is thrilled. As Song is counting the money, the guy says to him, there are ways of making big money like this just for playing games for a few days. But Song tells him he's not interested because the deal seems way too fishy, way too good to be true. And that's when the guy stands up and basically reveals all of Song's information. He shows Song that he knows his last name. He knows that earlier that day he signed away his physical rights to a loan shark. He knows how old he is. He knows where he went to school. He knows that he was laid off and had a bunch of failed businesses. He knows that he's divorced. He also knows about his little girl. And at this point, Song's a little freaked out. He demands to know who the guy is, but the guy doesn't answer. He just pulls out a little card from his pocket which looks like it was designed by the PlayStation company because it has an X, a square, and a circle. But on the card is a phone number. And the guy gives it to Song and says, "We don't have many spots left." He then gets on the next train and leaves. And Song takes the card and takes the money and goes to grab dinner. He goes to a local woman that he knows very well. He grew up with her son, and her son has done really well for himself. Her son's name is Sung Woo, and he went to a really successful business school. He's a successful businessman. He is the pride of his mother's eye, unlike Sung. And you get the sense that Song knows it, and because of that, he's a bit jealous. He grabs the food, heads home to have dinner with his mom, and he's excited because he's going to give his mom all the money that he won in that game of Dachki. But she's not excited because she's really concerned about how he got all that money in the first place. His mother, though, changes the topic, asks how dinner went with his daughter, and asks, did anything come up? And Song says no. What would come up? And that's when his mother says, well, your daughter, her mother, and her mother's boyfriend are all moving to the States next year. Song's reaction is kind of weak, and his mother gets really pissed off at him because she wants her son to fight for custody of his daughter. But Song doesn't feel like he's financially able to do that. His mother, though, has already looked into the matter. She tells him all he needs to do is prove that he can financially take care of his child, and he can get her back, keep her in the country. Way easier said than done, though, for Song. That night, he starts looking at photos of his daughter and him together, and then he remembers that guy gave him the card. That guy talked about winning big money for just playing games, so he gives the number a call. The person on the other end gives him an address to go to, and Song gets picked up by a bunch of guys who look like they're wearing fencing cages. You can't see what they look like. And when Song gets in the car, he's immediately gassed. When he eventually wakes up, he's with 455 other people, very confused on where he is. They're all wearing the same thing, a green jumpsuit. The only difference is they all have different numbers on them. And what these people can't see is everything is being monitored by the workers, who are all wearing red jumpsuits with that fencing mask that you can't see. And all of it seems to be run by this guy with a black mask who calls himself the front man. To the contestants, though, they're just confused. Song himself ends up bonding with the first guy, number 1, who's an older man who's dealing with a brain tumor. A commotion, though, breaks out between two contestants, a guy and a girl. And the guy is beating the crap out of the girl because the girl is a thief. It just so happens, by the way, the girl is the same girl that Sung knocked into when he lost his money. The girl, who's number 67, and the guy, who's number 101, just have a bad past. And Sung, even though he was robbed from, feels like he needs to interject before things get really out of hand. Everybody, though, stops when 9 workers come out and address the crowd. They start off by welcoming the group and explain that if you win all 6 games, you're going to receive a handsome cash prize. Most of the crowd, though, is really reluctant to believe these people because they all were gassed, they had their stuff taken, and now they're being addressed by people who won't even show their face. One guy speaks up big time, saying how what these people did wasn't right, and that person just so happens to be Song Woo, the successful businessman. He wants to know why everybody should stay. And that's when the workers tell everybody who Song Woo really is. He's in debt up to his eyeballs. He's being chased after the police. Yeah, he might be a businessman, but he's a failed businessman. He's $1.2 billion in debt. And he's not the only one. Everybody in the room owes a lot of money to people they don't want to owe money to. They all need a way out. These games are it. Now, nobody's forcing anybody to play these games, but when you volunteer to participate, you're in the game for good. He gives the group a chance to speak up if they don't want to participate in the game, but nobody does because everybody needs the money. And then he makes them all line up and sign a contract. The contract has 3 clauses. The first one is a player is not allowed to voluntarily quit the game. The second clause is a player who refuses to play will be eliminated. And the third clause is the games may be terminated upon a majority vote. And everybody lines up to sign their rights away. They're then ushered through what looks like a dollhouse to get their picture taken. And their pictures are unknowingly to them being put on a board. After that, they're shuffled out to the game arena. And that's when the front man kicks back, pours himself a cocktail, and watches what's about to take place. Now, all of the contestants are pretty confused, and it's explained to them that they're just going to play a simple game of red light, green light. It's the old children's game. When it's green light, you move ahead. When it's red light, you have to stop in place. If you move, you're out of the game. There's a slight difference, though. In this game, you have 5 minutes to get across the line. Oh, and the big difference is, in this game, if you move and it's red light, you end up dying. And when the contestants realize that, it does not go well. A lot of them are killed off. The ones that survive are really just frozen in place. But one by one, they realize that the only way to survive is to get across that line. So whether they like it or not, even though they're all terrified, they have to do it. Song is barely able to get over the line. In fact, at one point, it's red light, and he's about to fall forward, but he's saved by a guy who grabs the back of his collar, holding him up. But in the end, Song, along with a bunch of others, do end up crossing the line and surviving to the next game. And when the game ends, the roof closes up because they're no longer in the city. They're on a remote island. In episode 2, all the employees take the bodies to a crematorium that is on location, so the bodies are disposed of right away. The remaining players, they're completely shook. As they're sitting there trying to process what the hell just happened, one of the workers comes in and he announces that there's only 201 players left in the game. After this announcement, you've got a lot of players begging for their lives. They don't want to be in the game. They just want to go. They promise to pay their debts. They put on the waterworks, all of that. The group of players and the workers go back and forth on how serious the matter is, with the workers reminding the players, hey, this is just a game, and those people broke the rules. That's why they're not here anymore. And you guys are going to win prize money. But at this point, the players don't really care about prize money. They care about staying alive. They just want to be let go. As the players continue to plead their cases, finally, the worker gets frustrated and just reminds them that in the second clause of the contract they signed, a player who refuses to play will be eliminated. And that's when Sang-woo reminds him that the third clause is the game can end if there's a majority vote. So they all agree, yeah, okay, we're going to vote. But before they do, the worker has one last trick in his pocket to try to keep everybody involved in the game. He shows them how much prize money they've won. Since there were 255 players eliminated, there's currently 25.5 billion won, or dollars, in the piggy bank. 100 million per player. And suddenly people start thinking, this game isn't that bad. The worker then opens it up to a vote. And it goes back and forth. But at the end, the people who want to eliminate the game end up winning out. And the people who want to play the game, well, they beg to stay in because they want that money. But that money is going to go to the victims' families. They're going to be compensated with the 25.5 billion. As the crowd is completely torn, the worker announces that they're not going to seal this door of opportunity just yet. He's going to give everybody one final chance. And if the majority wants to re-enter the game, then they'll be allowed to. He also makes some speech about how if they think that this is bad, it's not going to be any better when they return to their lives. And most of the players find that out the hard way. The players are gassed, they're tied up, and they're dropped off in random locations around the country. Each player is dropped off at a location with another player. Sang-woo is dropped off with the guy that actually saved Song's life. And he's in a bit of a predicament because where they dropped him off, he's nowhere near town, and he doesn't have a cell phone. So he has to follow Sang-woo to a convenience store so that he can charge his cell phone and he can use it. And when Sang-woo opens his phone, he's got a bunch of notifications from the police telling him that they need to talk to him. They're going to subpoena him, they're going to arrest him. And to the police, he was blowing them off, but in reality, he wasn't answering his phone because he was busy playing the game. Even though Sang-woo is obviously hard up for cash, he decides to help this guy out, lending him his cell phone and also giving him some money so he can get home. Once this guy does get home, he goes to his former employer looking for some cash that his former employer owes him, but his former employer doesn't really want to pay the money, even though he has it. It gets pretty ugly. The guy's hand gets stuck in a mechanism, and but anyway, the guy gets his money, and he returns home, and he gives it to his wife. As for Song Woo, he didn't really know what he was going to do, but he knew he had to lay low. He told his mom that he was out of town on business, which became pretty awkward when the police showed up at her work looking for him. And it's really unfortunate because what his mom doesn't know is that Seong Woo had put up her place as collateral. And it's only a matter of time before her restaurant and her home and all of it is taken from her. He actually discusses this with Song. Not really by choice, Song kind of ran into him. And Song just can't really imagine that what that guy said back at the game was true about Seong Woo owing all this money. But Seong Woo reluctantly admits, no, it's all true. Yeah, I put on this facade as a successful businessman, but I'm anything but. After talking with Seong Woo, Song ends up going to the police. And he tells them the whole story. They were kidnapped. They were forced to play this game. There was money involved. People were murdered. But it's such a crazy story that the police do not buy it. Song gets so frustrated that he gives them the card that he called to get into the game. But when they call it, it's nobody associated with the game. It's just a random woman. And the police think he's crazy, so they kick him out. Song can't figure out exactly how this is possible. When he calls the number, now it's disconnected, and he's really confused. But then he gets a phone call from the hospital. Turns out while he was gone, his mother had an issue. She got admitted to the hospital because she has horrible diabetes, and she's not been taking care of herself. The hospital wants to keep his mother there for treatment, but she starts stumbling out. When Song tries to stop her, she doesn't want to hear it because he's been gone for a few days, not keeping her in touch with what he's been up to. She feels like he doesn't care. She's not leaving, though, because she's hard-headed. She tells her son, I'm leaving because if I stay and they treat me, then who pays the rent? You used up all our money. We don't have any. I literally can't afford treatment. And Song knows that that is accurate. He wants to help his mother out, but there's only one place he can turn. It's his ex-wife's. And he doesn't want to go to her hat in hand, but he has to. He's got nowhere else to turn. And his ex-wife tells him, we don't have any money. We're not exactly flush with cash. This results in a little bit of an argument back and forth regarding the birth of their daughter and how Song missed it because one of his coworkers had to go to the hospital, but he ended up dying. The whole thing is messy, and it gets interrupted when his ex-wife's new husband walks through the door with not only Song's daughter, but also his son. It's a surprise to the husband to see the ex standing there. But Song realizes it's an uncomfortable situation, and he goes to leave. He made up a lie that he was there just to visit his daughter, but he's about to blow right past her, and then he remembers, oh yeah, I probably should say hi to her. Once Song does leave, the new husband asks his wife, what did he want? And his wife says he wanted money. So the guy goes and gives it to him. He chases him down in the parking lot and hands him the wad of cash that Song needs for his mother. And Song is really appreciative until the guy says, no, you don't understand. You don't have to pay me back. This is a one-time thing for you to go away. I want you to stop bothering my family. And Song gets really offended to the point where he punches this guy in the face. He throws the wad of cash down at him, yelling at him, but then he looks up and he notices that his daughter has been watching this entire exchange. And he's extremely embarrassed. That night, depressed, Song decides to just drink alone outside. But a familiar face walks up. It's the old man. It's number one. He can't believe he's running into Song like this on the street, and the two start chit-chatting, drinking together. And that's when the old man reveals he's decided to go back in the game. Because as he tells Song, what they said in there is accurate. It's no better out here. And I've got this brain tumor anyway. I'm going to die, so I might as well try to win this money to pass it on to my family. But this old man isn't the only person that's thinking like that. In fact, a lot of them are. The thief has a brother to take care of. She also paid to get her parents smuggled out of a dangerous environment, and she got screwed out of that money. So she also needs money. The guy she was fighting with in the game, well, he's got creditors after him from a casino that are hunting him down, looking to recoup some organs. Yeah, a lot of people are going back to the game. And now it's got Song thinking about going back to the game. As he heads home to his apartment, he's a little surprised because there's somebody there waiting for him. And it's a police officer. When Song had made his plea to the police and no one believed him, this guy was walking in. And then he just kind of thought that Song was crazy too. But then he went to his brother's apartment because his brother had been missing. He was looking for clues as to what happened to him, and that's when he saw a very similar card, the same one that Song brought into the police station, and he got curious. So he went back, he got Song's information, and he tracked him down. And he starts begging Song to help him out. But all that Song will say is, I made that whole story up. And the cop doesn't believe him. But Song is not in the mood to help anybody out. When he does get to his front door, there's the card waiting for him to see if he wants to go back into the game. And like everybody else, he does. He calls the number, and one by one, they all get picked up. One by one, they all get gassed, and they all get taken back to the facility. There's one person, though, who didn't get gassed. It's the thief. She wants to find out where she's going. So while the gas was being administered, she just held her breath. And she's well aware of what's going on. But there's also another person that's aware of what's going on. It's the cop. He didn't believe that Song had just made up this story. He followed him. He saw him get picked up by the van, and he's following it. In episode 3, the police officer, whose name is John Ho, follows the vehicles and he gets to a pier. And he watches one by one as a bunch of vans load onto a freighter. He knows he has to get onto that freighter. So as the vans are waiting in a line, he just hitches a ride on the last one, and nobody notices. Once the freighter gets out to sea, all of a sudden, the doors on each van open up. And it gives John Ho an opportunity to see what exactly is going on. When he looks inside, he sees a bunch of people that are knocked out. So he jumps in one of the vans and he pretends to be knocked out. And that's when the workers start coming around and scanning the earlobes of each person. Because they must have put a tracking device in there somehow that gives them the information on the contestant. But when the worker comes to John Ho, there is no information because there's no tracking device. And that's when John Ho chokes him out and kills him. He then switches outfits with the guy, so now it looks like John Ho is one of the workers, and he dumps the body overboard. Now, he is almost caught. A couple of the workers notice what he's doing, and they walk up to him and say, what the hell's going on here? But John Ho, acting quick on his feet, just says, I have seasickness. And they say, all right, well, get upstairs. We got work to do. But now John Ho has his in. As for the rest of the contestants, they're loaded up on the island, and they're stripped down, just like they were the first time. Their clothes, their jewelry, watches, shoes, they're all put aside, and they're replaced with numbered t-shirts and green jumpsuits. For someone like the thief, she has to pretend the entire time that she's knocked out, but she's not. Upstairs, one of the workers who has a square as his symbol tells the front man that out of the 201 contestants, 187 players have returned, which is a really, really good number. But the front man isn't satisfied, and he tells the worker, well, keep track of the ones who didn't return. For the contestants, though, once they wake up, they kind of know the drill at this point. For Song, he's pretty surprised to see some people. He didn't expect to see Sang-woo, but he's here. And the old man, contestant number 1, he didn't expect to see Seong. They also end up meeting up with the guy that saved Song's life, who also was helped out by Sang-woo. He's contestant number 199 in your program, but ladies and gentlemen, he is Ali. All right, sorry. Anyway, all of them agree that they probably should form an alliance to help each other out. It might benefit them if they know what children's games are coming up next, and if they recognize it, maybe it could be their advantage. So all 4 of them form an alliance. But they aren't the only ones getting reacquainted and possibly forming an alliance. The first time the thief and contestant 101 found themselves in this room, contestant 101 was beating the shit out of the thief. She used to work for him. Seems like she kind of ripped him off, and he, being a little bit of a street kingpin, has quickly garnered up some minions, and he wants her to join, but she has no interest in doing it. And she warns his minions, be careful of this guy. He used to pick his minions' pockets to fill his own wallet. This really pisses off contestant 101, and he wants to go after the thief, but they get interrupted by contestant 212. She starts hitting on 101 pretty hard. She wants to form an alliance, and contestant 101 has some other ideas. They involve sex with her. He says some crude things to her. She takes it because ultimately she wants to be on his side, not against him. But in reality, she doesn't like the guy at all. She also does not like the thief. She finds her annoying. Especially when that night, contestant 212 is banging on the door because she has to go to the bathroom. The problem is it's after curfew. The workers aren't supposed to let the contestants out to do anything. All they're supposed to be doing right now is sleeping, but she's putting up a pretty big commotion. And finally, one of the workers opens the door and he's about to allow her, and that's when the thief jumps ahead of her and says, "I need to go to the bathroom too." And contestant 212 is pissed off, but both women head to the bathroom. Now, the reason why contestant 212 wanted to go to the bathroom wasn't because she actually wanted to go. Contestant 212 snuck something in. Buried deep in her body was a capsule filled with about 4 cigarettes and a lighter. Hey, she needs her fix. But she's not the only one who snuck something in. The thief snuck in a pocket knife. And as 212 is blazing up, the thief busts open the door, but she doesn't want to attack 212. She wants to open up the vent above her to go through and see what she can find about this place. And while 212 finds her annoying, she's also pretty curious as to what's going on here, so she tells her, "Look, I'll stand watch. You go get some answers. I'll stay here." And it gets pretty dicey because both women are, to the workers at least, taking their sweet time going to the bathroom, so it causes 212 to really put on an act that the guy cannot come in. But when he finally does come in, both women are back, and it does in fact look like she was just blowing up a bathroom. Unfortunately, the thief really didn't get any information. She crawled through the vent system, but all she saw was the workers were cooking something in big containers, and it smelled like sugar. Not a lot of information to go on. As for Jun Ho, he that night was getting acclimated to life as a worker. He's number 29, and he's been able to discern that there is a pecking order. Squares are very important. Triangles are below them, and the lowest on the totem pole are the circles. And he killed a circle. There's also rules that he has to abide by. Always wear your mask outside. Do not converse without permission, and don't leave the room without permission. There's also a camera in his room that's watching him at all times, so anytime he wants to use the cell phone, he has to be covert about it and use it under the covers. For the time being, he's planning to just kind of bide his time, find out what he can about this place, and hopefully get some answers to what happened to his brother. The next morning, the contestants wake up, they have breakfast, and it's announced that shortly after breakfast, the second game will start. For one contestant, though, he's been tipped off on what it might be. For contestant 111, when he was eating his breakfast, there was a small note in the loaf of bread he was given, and it just said, "honeycomb." It's a clue as to what they'll be doing. But it looks like he's the only one that was tipped off. The rest of them seem to have no idea, and when they get to the game arena, they still are pretty confused. There are 4 shapes on the wall. There's a triangle, a circle, a star, and an umbrella, and they're told that they're going to have to choose a shape. And a lot of this does sound familiar, but a lot of them can't place it. One person who does place it is Sang-woo. Sang-woo knows this game. They used to play it as kids. You get a honeycomb that's melted down with a symbol in it. And your job is to carve that symbol out without breaking the honeycomb. The easier symbol is probably going to be the triangle, but the worst symbol to get is the umbrella. Now, even though Sang-woo agreed to be in an alliance, he doesn't tell anybody about this. And he is conflicted. When they all agree to take different shapes, and Sung says, "I'll take the umbrella," he is about to stop him, but he doesn't. He just allows him to go take the umbrella. Each contestant then gets in the line of the shape that they want. They're handed a container, and when they open it up, they see the honeycomb and a needle. And for a guy like Sung, he knows he's screwed. Each contestant's going to have 10 minutes to carve their symbol out of the honeycomb. If it breaks, they die. Doesn't take too long for that to happen. 3 minutes in, the first casualty occurs. And the longer the game goes, the more people die off. All the while, Jun Ho is watching this. But he actually gets caught. A Square employee comes up and asks, "What's your duty today?" And Jun Ho doesn't really know how to answer that. The Square interrupts him and says, "Your duties are to carry out the eliminated player, so why are you here now?" And all Jun Ho can say is, "I'm sorry, I got confused." With the game in progress, the Square tells him, "Wait here until after the game ends. I want to talk to you." The game, though, continues to go on. And for a guy like contestant 111, it's light work. He picked the easiest one because he knew it was coming. As he's being ushered out of the arena, a triangle tells him not to follow everybody else, but go left. And he's being ushered away to a separate place. He's definitely getting some kind of preferential treatment. He's not the only one that's cheating, though. Contestant 212 snuck her lighter in. and she's using the lighter to cut through the honeycomb. As she's leaving, she drops the lighter right in front of contestant 101. She's still trying to get on his good side, and he's able to use the lighter just like she did to get out of there. The thief, Ali, the old man, Sang-woo, they're all able to complete the task. The last person who's really struggling is Sung because he picked the umbrella. But with about 2 minutes to go, he's sweating profusely. The sweat drips on the honeycomb, and he realizes this sweat softens the honeycomb. So he starts frantically licking it. Because if he can soften it up, he's not going to have to worry about breaking it. With 1 second to go, he is able to complete the task and get the umbrella out of there. For the ones who didn't complete it, they know what's coming next, but one particular contestant isn't having it. He attacks the worker before he's killed off, stabbing him in the mask with that needle and then grabbing the gun and holding another worker hostage. He's completely outmanned at this point. I mean, it's one versus an army, and that army turns the guns on everybody else that didn't complete the task, leaving him and his hostage. He doesn't really know how to play this, so he demands that the worker he's holding hostage just take his mask off. And he does, and it seems to be a kid in his 20s, and he's shocked. He then turns the gun on himself, but he won't be the only person to die, because the front man comes down, and he shoots the worker, the one that took his mask off, because that's against the rules. As Jun-ho is surveying all these bodies that he's supposed to carry out there, he gets a reminder that number 29 is supposed to stay and wait. But he can't answer those questions, so he thinks quickly. The guy that died, he was a triangle. So with everybody preoccupied, he decides to grab his mask and assume his identity. In episode 4, there are 104 players left after the game. And when they arrive back, they're all excited because they find friends that survived. For Seong, he does think that maybe Sang-woo had a little bit of an idea of what was going on, but you know what? It's water under the bridge. They all got through this thing together. It's okay. The next morning, though, is when things really start to get interesting. Because the next morning, for breakfast, all that's available is 1 egg and water. For most of the contestants, they're not happy about that. That's not nearly enough. And that's when contestant 212 has an idea. She tells contestant 101, why don't we just skip the line? We'll get more food. No one's going to stop us. We have kind of a group of people. What's anyone going to say? So they do that. And there is one woman who kind of pipes up about it, but contestant 101, the kingpin thug, he tells her to shut up or she'll pay. And they get food. The problem is there was only enough food for everybody, which means that when that group cut the line, it left about 5 or 6 people without a meal. The workers, they really don't care. They explain the situation. We had enough for everybody. I don't know what to tell you. And that's when the one woman who piped up the first time says, I'll tell you what happened. Those people over there, they stole your food. Then it's a little embarrassing for 101 and his group, but he owns it. He doesn't really care. He doesn't see the big deal about it. And when one of the guys who didn't get food comes up to confront him about this, 101 doesn't really see this person as a threat because they're smaller than him. A little bit of entanglement ensues, and the glass bottle of water that everybody was given falls to the ground and it shatters. That's when 101 just loses it. He starts beating on this poor guy, kicking him. Everybody watching, nobody doing a thing, until finally 101 stops. But it's too late. The guy died. Seong starts screaming for someone to do something, the workers, anybody. But no one's saying a word. And that's when the announcement gets made that contestant 271 has been eliminated, and more money gets added to the pot. And it's a nice reminder for everybody that they're there to play a game. And the less contestants, the better. But there was one contestant that missed all of this, and it's contestant 111. He's definitely been getting preferential treatment, but that's because 111 is a doctor. And some of the workers have decided that with all these dead bodies, they shouldn't just cremate them. Not if there are good organs in there. They're going to steal the organs and sell them on the black market. But in order to do that, they need a doctor, and they need a guy like 111. So they've been giving him preferential treatment. They've been giving him hints as to what the games are. They've been giving him more food to keep him alive. But the return is that when they need him, they get him. So while everybody was watching this poor guy get the crap beat out of him because people stole food, 111, he was busy harvesting organs. One of the workers that's actually supposed to get the organs off the island is Jun Ho. Of course, he doesn't know that. So when he doesn't show up for the organs, it does raise some concerns with a couple of the other workers. But all 111 cares about is finding out what the next game is. The group hands him an egg. They do give him a warning, though. The game isn't his only concern. He needs to make sure that he survives the night. Because they gave everybody less food on purpose. They knew that it would cause an uproar with the contestants. And they knew that that night, violence would ensue. There would be an outbreak of violence, and the doctor needs to survive. So, yeah, they give him the egg, and there is a hint as to what the game will be. It's going to be tug of war. But his big concern at this point is surviving. So when he gets back to the barracks, he needs to find people to align with, and he decides to join 101's group. Now, at first, they have no interest in letting him join, especially contestant 212. She is really, really chesty about it. Even when he brings up that he's a doctor, they don't care. How does that help them? So he lets them in on the fact that he knows what the next game is going to be. And that little secret does get him entrance into their group. And it's a good thing because 101 has decided to seek out vengeance against the girl that ratted him out that night. When lights go out, he's going to go after her. But everybody kind of has an idea that something's going down that night. For Seong and his group, they have a feeling too, so they know they need to band together to kind of stay safe. The problem is most people don't trust each other yet. They don't know each other that well. Especially for the thief. As far as she's concerned, it's still every man for himself. And for the most part, everybody with that philosophy ends up dying that night. When the lights go out, all hell breaks loose. People are murdered left and right. And at one point, it looks like the thief is going to be one of them, but she's saved by Seong. All of this, by the way, is being watched by the front man. He knew what was coming. In fact, he had workers ready by the door to burst in and stop it. One of those workers was Jun Ho. He saw everybody lining up, and he decided to be one of them to see what was going on. So while all this madness is breaking out, there's people there to stop it, but they're just waiting word from the front man. And after enough death and destruction, he finally gives the order, they go in, and they stop everything. They have all the contestants put their arms up, they check them for weapons, any weapons they do find they take. But Jun Ho uses this as an opportunity to walk up to Seong and ask if he knows where his brother is. He uses his brother's real name, but doesn't matter anyway. Seong has no idea what the guy's talking about. When it's all said and done, about 30 people die. Because of this skirmish, factions have definitely formed. For Seong and his group, he decides if they're going to be a team, they might as well get to know each other. So they start going around and offering up names. And while the thief thinks it's stupid, she does reveal that her name is Seobyok. Unfortunately, the old man, he can't remember his name. The other group, across the barracks, 101's group, the people that started this, well, they're actually really relieved that they have a doctor on their side now because he stitches the wounded up. For contestant 212, she realizes that 101, while he's a jackass and a douchebag, he's a very powerful ally. So she decides to seduce him. She sleeps with him in the bathroom, and she makes him promise that it'll be them in the end. They're going to work as a team. That's not going to last long, though. The next morning, everybody gets word that the next game will start soon, and they have to break out into groups of 10. For contestant 101, thanks to the doctor's tip, he knows that they're going to need a bunch of men. A woman like 212, she's not going to help him in this game. So he gives word to one of his cronies, go find the strongest guys here. Get them on our team. For Seong and his group, they start to strategize. They don't know what the game is, but Song-woo says, we already have a girl and an older guy. I'm thinking we need more men. It's sexist and ageist, but as he points out, it's our lives we're betting on. So he sends everybody out to go find one person and bring them back. Sabyak, she doesn't listen. She brings back another girl named Ji Young. Everybody else, though, does their part. They bring back somebody except the old man. He couldn't find anybody. which means they only have 9. And that's when their 10th teammate shows up. It's contestant 212. She couldn't believe that right after sleeping with her and promising her that they would work together to get to the end, 101 just kicked her to the curb, but such is life in the Squid Game. With nowhere else to turn, Seung's group was it. And it's not like they want to play with her. Nobody likes 212. She's arrogant for literally no reason. She's pretty much useless, but they only have 9 and time's up. So they don't have a choice. All the teams head into the game area, and that's when they find out that the game is going to be tug of war. For Seung, and especially Sang-woo, they feel like their team's screwed. They've got 3 girls and a guy that's pushing 90. Tug of war is probably not their game. The first game is matched up, and it is 101's group, and they easily win and they move on. The next group is Seung's. But little do they know that that old man is a ringer when it comes to tug of war. He knows all the tricks. As they head up the elevator to actually play it, he lets them know that he used to play this as a kid, and he was able to formulate this great strategy that would beat stronger teams. For instance, you don't all line up on the same side. One on the left, one on the right, one on the left, one on the right. You also all have to be facing forward. You need your weaker players in the middle, your stronger players in the back, somebody up front to set the pace. But the most important thing is when the game starts, everybody arch their back. Look up to the ceiling. Wait the other team out. They'll get frustrated, and that's when you make your move. For Seung and his team, they start to do this, and it starts to work. In Episode 5, Seung's group somehow manages to win tug of war. It gets pretty dicey there, but in the end, they live. When they return to the barracks, 111's group is shocked to see them. They thought for sure that that group was going to die. Honestly, who could blame them? When contestant 212 sees contestant 101, she gives him a little bit of a smirk. Like, yeah, bitch, I made it. When the game wraps up, there are only 40 contestants left. Seung's group is hanging out in the barracks, chatting about the game, the strategy, how crazy it worked. But 212 is annoying the crap out of them. She's pulling the same stuff that she did in 101's group. She's trying to say that other players in the group are weak, they need to get rid of them. And she just got there. Gets to the point where finally Sang-woo reminds them that she got kicked out of her last group. They ended up with all male players, which he finds really suspicious. He thinks it's amazing how they were all supposed to break up into teams, and they just happen to know what group would work best for that game. You can tell it's something that she hadn't even thought about. Maybe 101 knew what was going on this entire time. The announcement then gets made that there's going to be lights out in 30 minutes, and planning starts to take place. They don't trust 101's group to not do another attack, so they know they need to formulate some kind of plan, and they decide to take a bunch of the bunks and form kind of a barricade. 101 comes over at one point to kind of mock them, and Seung points out maybe he shouldn't be mocking them at all. Maybe he should be doing the same thing, because he's the top dog. It's only a matter of time before somebody comes for the crown. This does get 101 thinking quite a bit. He was planning an attack, but now he feels like maybe he should just watch his back. So when he gets back to his group, he tells them they're going to take the night off. They need to rest up. A little while later, lights out takes place, but now it's time for the doctor to earn his keep. It's time for 29 to make good on missing out the last time they were supposed to deliver the organs. The guy that he usually works with, or the guy that the old 29 usually works with, comes up to him and says, dude, where were you? Look, I covered for you, but I can't do that again. The only reason the guy didn't rat him out is because the old 29 saved the guy's life. Jun-ho just lucked out, really. When he gets into the room, he's pretty shocked. He wasn't expecting to see a guy cutting open a body. The Triangle, who's in charge, wants 29 to be punished for flaking the last time they were supposed to deliver organs. But Jun-ho's partner sticks up for him, saying, if you don't like this, do it yourself. Delivering organs ain't easy, Chief. They then start really getting on the doctor to hurry it up, which is ludicrous because he's sleep deprived, he's hungry, and getting organs out of a body isn't all that easy. But these workers are dealing with a time constraint, so they're trying to prod him along. They continue to push the doctor continues to work. Over in the barracks, each group has somebody watching to make sure that they're not attacked. Ali and Sang-woo take the first watch, and it's pretty obvious that Ali really respects Sang-woo and kind of looks up to him in a way. He keeps calling him sir. He saved him some food. And Sang-woo, while he appreciates it, is a little weirded out by it and doesn't want to get that attached. Eventually, their shift ends, and Sang-woo wakes up Seong. Seong is standing there, just staring off into the abyss, when he starts to see visions. Visions of an attack that went down at his old job. There was a strike that took place. The company wanted to break that strike, and boy, did they ever. A lot of people died. Sung wasn't one of the people on the picket lines. He couldn't afford to get fired, but he ended up getting fired anyway. It was a dark time in Seung's life. He shares this with the old man, who remembers the story, because it was a big story. The story stops, though, when the old man kind of grabs his head. He's clearly in pain. When Seung feels it, the old man is burning up. Seung gets really, really concerned for this guy. He shares his concern with the team, and some people do want to help out. Surprisingly, one of them is the thief, Sub-yak. They start to nurse the guy back to health, but then they have to take watch again. Down in the basement, the doctor continues to try to get these organs out as quickly as possible, under duress. While they're waiting, a couple of the workers talk about how they get these organs. There was one guy a while back who ended up waking up. He was like a zombie. When Jun-ho hears this, even though there's not a lot of details, he is convinced that the zombie must have been his brother. The reason why he thinks this is because they mentioned the zombie only had one kidney. And his brother had donated a kidney to Jun-ho. So he's convinced that he's looking at his brother's murderers. But he's still able to keep his cool. As Jun-ho asks a couple of questions about this zombie, the group gets a little suspicious because 29 was there. Jun-ho thinks he's going to have to pull a gun and shoot everybody there, but luckily, the doctor snaps. He tells everybody that he can't work with everybody yapping around him, so everyone needs to shut up. Finally, in the wee hours of the morning, all the organs are harvested, and 29, along with his partner, head off with the shipment. As for the doctor, he wants his reward. He wants to find out what the game is. But the workers tell him, yeah, we don't know. We haven't been told yet. And the doctor loses it. He is pissed off. He demands that some worker go find out what this game is because he's not going to die having just harvested a couple of bodies for these people. The problem is the workers don't really care. He doesn't have a lot of leverage. So the doctor gets some leverage. He grabs a scalpel and holds it to a guy's neck, demanding they get some answers. They act like they're going to, and then the person tries to fight back. The doctor stabs him with the scalpel. He gets hit by the other worker. It gets pretty messy. The doctor takes off running. The problem is that place is a maze. I mean, there's steps and a bunch of doors. He doesn't know where to turn. All the while, he's being chased by workers who want to catch him. He finally ends up in the room where they played the honeycomb game, but he gets caught by one of the workers. And while he has a crowbar, this guy's got a gun. The worker, though, doesn't want to shoot the doctor. They need him. So they're just going to try to talk him off the ledge. As the worker is trying to talk him off the ledge, he realizes this isn't going to work. The doctor's too far gone. So he starts to sweet talk him, trying to get behind him so he can attack him. And that's when the guy gets shot. He gets shot by the front man. He doesn't care that the group decided to sell the organs. What he cares about is that he ruined the most important asset of the game, equality. He was giving the doctor preferential treatment. That's what he cares about. So he kills him. And then he instructs the workers to kill the doctor. As for the organs that the doctor was harvesting, well, Jun-ho and his coworker took off. There were a bunch of hidden tunnels throughout the facility that led to an underground cave with a bunch of scuba equipment, and you would just dive out, find a boat, deliver the organs, and then dive back. The thing is, Jun-ho's questions raised a lot of suspicions with his coworker. So while Jun-ho's back is turned to him, the coworker pulls out a knife and says, "Who are you? You're not 29. Your voice sounds different, and you're way more inquisitive than you used to be. Take off your mask." He takes off his mask to reveal that, yes, he is not 29. He is not the coworker. But before the guy can do anything, he cocks his gun, because as he was taking off his mask, he was pulling out his gun. And this guy brought a knife to a gunfight. So now Jun-Ho is holding all the cards. He tells the worker it doesn't matter who he is. What he wants to know is what happened to that zombie. Because as he explains, that zombie was missing a kidney because he has the kidney. That zombie was his brother. And immediately the worker, who is terrified at this point, says, no, that's impossible because that person was a girl. Jun-Ho doesn't really believe him, but the guy says, check the list. There's a list of all the players with all their info and their medical records. Go check that. Jun-Ho asks where these records are, and the guy says it's in the room where the leader's in. You know him. He wears a mask way different than everybody else. Now that he's got the answers he needs, he shoots the guy and takes off to find those records. He climbs up the ladder that the worker had pointed to, and he does get to the front man's office. He starts sneaking around with a gun, waiting for someone to pop out. But then he hears an alarm go off, and that's because the front man is onto him. After he found out about the organs getting harvested, it wasn't hard to find where they were doing that. It also wasn't hard to find where they were taking the organs out of. He knew that it couldn't be one person doing it, so he knows that there's somebody else in the facility who's still there who he needs to find. The front man decides to do a roll call, and he's able to figure out that he's looking for number 29. Jun-Ho, however, is not deterred by the sirens. He continues to make his way through the front man's office, and he does find those records. This game dates back to as early as 1999. And just as the guy said, there's records for everybody. But as he looks through them, he doesn't find his brother's name. He finds a book, though, that has all the winners on it. As he combs that, he sees his brother's name. In episode 6, as Jun-Ho is going over his brother's file to find out exactly what happened to him, he hears the phone ring. He doesn't know who's calling, but then he hears footsteps, and it's the front man showing up. So he has to hide. He hears the front man answer the phone and say, yes, there's been a minor disturbance, but it's being addressed. There's no need to worry. We'll make sure there's no trace of the disturbance by the time the VIPs show up. Don't worry, the game will begin on time, sir. And then he hangs up. Once the front man leaves, Jun-Ho goes over to the phone, and he tries to make an outgoing call, but it doesn't work. The phone only works for incoming calls. He puts the receiver down and he goes back to collecting data and looking for information on what happened to his brother. As for the contestants, the workers come in and they make all the contestants get up and stand in line. The problem is, for the old man, he's still sick and he had an accident. He peed himself. Seong, just showing some compassion, takes his jacket off and wraps it around the old man so he has some dignity. They then get word that the fourth game is about to begin. As they make their way up the steps to the next game arena, they see a troubling sight. It's 4 workers hanging along with the doctor. Their dead bodies are just dangling there. There's then an announcement from one of the workers that says what you witness here is what remains of those who broke the rules for their own benefit. They tainted the pure ideology that everything here has been built upon. Each of you is an equal, and you must be guaranteed that. There won't be any discrimination here, and we truly apologize. Most of the contestants have no idea what to make of this, and they don't know why the doctor's hanging in there. And that includes the Kingpin, 101. What he's more upset about is he no longer has an in on what the next game's going to be. They then make their way to the waiting area, and there's an announcement made that for the fourth game, they have to break up into pairs of 2. Just about everybody is looking around, and they're looking for allies. Sang-woo decides to pair with Ali. It's a natural fit. Sa-byok pairs with Ji-young. And while he knows that it might cost them, Seong decides to pair with the old man. He knows deep down the old man is going to have problems finding a partner, so he wants to kind of look after him. No one, though, wants to pair up with contestant 212. She's just way too annoying, way too persistent. Literally nobody wants to deal with her. And as the groups make their way into the game arena, she's trying frantically to convince anybody to drop their partner for her. But nobody's listening. One by one, they just walk right by her in her desperate attempts to get a partner. She's pretty terrified. She thinks that she's going to get killed off, but in reality, it's the best thing to happen for her. With the odd number, she didn't have a partner, so she survives on to the next round. She's not forced to play. The workers just escort her back to the barracks, and she just waits to find out who made it, who didn't. As for everybody else, they make their way into the game arena, and it looks like an old neighborhood. In fact, the old man makes mention that it looks like the neighborhood he grew up in. Each pair, though, is teamed up with one of the workers. The workers hand each person a bag full of 10 marbles. The game is to get the 10 marbles from your partner. If you're able to get the 10 marbles, you win, your partner dies. Everybody has 30 minutes. Everybody played this wrong. They thought that they were going to be working as a team when in reality they're working against each other. And for a lot of teams, they don't like this at all. For a guy like Ali, who looks up to Sang-woo, he doesn't like the idea of one of them dying. For Seong, he doesn't like the idea of killing off the old man. And while Seo Byuk and Ji Young don't really know each other, they don't want to kill each other. But everybody's got 30 minutes, and nobody wants to die. So one way or the other, you got to find a way to get your partner to give you the 10 marbles. Now, one rule of this is you can't use physical violence. So for the Kingpin, he's not going to be able to just beat the crap out of his partner. Most teams decide to play odds and evens. The way that game works is one person's the guesser, and the other person puts a certain amount of marbles in their hand, closed fist, and the person that's the guesser just guesses if it's an odd number of marbles or an even number of marbles. If they get it right, they get the amount of marbles that's in the hand. And if they get it wrong, they have to give the amount of marbles that they themselves have in their hand. Ji Young and Seo Byuk, they decide to do something completely different. They decide to do a one-chance, winner-take-all game. They're not going to string this thing out, and they're going to wait till the last moment to play the game. They're going to spend the 30 minutes just trying to get to know each other. Now, the old man doesn't really seem to understand what's at stake. Seong doesn't know if it's dementia or the fever, but the old man just starts walking around the arena looking for where he grew up. Seong literally has to grab him and say, "We need to play this game." And finally, the old man agrees. Okay, we'll play. We'll do odds and evens. The problem is, Seong is getting worked in this game. I mean, it's bad. It gets to the point where Seong has one marble left, and the old man wins. But the old man asks Seong, "Wait, did I guess odds or evens?" And Seong lies and says, "Oh, you said the other one. You said odds." So the old man allows the game to continue. Seong lies his way to a victory, or so he thinks. He walks up to the worker to show him he's got 10 marbles, but that's when the old man says, "Oh, wait, I found one." And the problem is they're running out of time. And the old man doesn't really have a lot of interest in playing. He starts to do what he did at the beginning. He starts to walk around looking for the location of where he grew up. And he does find it. All the while, Seong is trying to convince him to continue to play so we can finish this thing. Seong is begging the old man to snap out of it. And finally, the old man says, "Okay, why don't we do one more, but it's winner take all." Seong doesn't want to do that. I mean, he's basically won this thing. And even if he loses, he'll just convince the old man that he won. Seong screams at him, "That doesn't make sense at all." And the old man says, "Well, that's what you did. I mean, does tricking your old friend, does that make sense to you?" Because this whole time, the old man knew he was getting played. And Seong feels ashamed. Seong starts to cry. He doesn't quite know what to say. And the old man grabs his hand, puts the remaining marble in it, and closes it. And says, "Take it. It's yours anyway. We're gambu, aren't we?" And gambu means we're best friends in Korean. It's something they had said right before the rules of the game had been made. That they were best friends. The old man gives him a hug and thanks him for making this a great experience. But Seong is crying at this point because he doesn't want to see his gambu die. But he's going to. As Seong walks away, he can't look as the old man gets shot. Now, Seo Byuk didn't really expect to get a connection with Ji Young. But the more they talked, the more she did end up liking her. And when it came time to play that game, Ji Young threw it. She let Seo Byuk win. Seo Byuk told a story about how she has a little brother and her parents are still in North Korea. And Ji Young realized that Sabiak had something to play for. Ji Young didn't. This didn't exactly make Sabiak happy. She actually got really pissed off. She demanded that Ji Young actually play the game, but Ji Young refused. She was completely okay with losing to Sabiak. As Sabiak walks away, Ji Young says, "Thank you for playing with me." And then she gets shot. The Kingpin, he was losing his game, so he decided to change it up, and he ended up winning. But the worst, by far, was Sang-woo. He did some scumbag behavior. He was losing to Ali. Losing badly. So we decided to trick Ali. With one remaining marble left, he convinced Ali that what they would do is actually work as a team, just like they thought they were going to initially. They were going to find another group of two, and they were going to go 20 marbles against 20 marbles. Sang-woo was able to get Ali to give him his marbles, to hide them. But while Ali wasn't looking, Sang-woo took all the marbles and replaced them with rocks and gave them back to Ali. So Ali is aimlessly walking around looking for people to play with as Sang-woo casually walked up to one of the workers and showed him that he got 20 marbles. The last thing that goes through Ali's head before he dies is the fact that he got betrayed by someone he thought he was friends with. In episode 7, as the survivors make their way back to the barracks, they're pretty surprised because 212 is standing there, smiling from ear to ear with a shit-eating grin on her face. She tells everybody proudly how, when no one picked her, the workers just escorted her back. So everybody's still stuck with her. As for the front man who watched the whole game, his big concern at this point is they still haven't found number 29. As he heads back to his office, his phone rings, and it's whoever is controlling this whole thing. And he wants to congratulate the front man on a game that was very successful. The front man thanks him and lets him know that the VIPs will be arriving shortly. But when the front man answered the phone, he noticed that the phone was put back on the ringer in the opposite direction. So he knows that number 29 was in the office. He picked up the phone, and he's pretty sure that number 29 is probably still in the office somewhere. He starts speaking as if number 29 can hear him, and he lets him know that he knows he's a cop, because the bullet he used to kill the one organ transporter is only issued for cops' guns. He goes through his office, gun in hand, saying that it's not too late for number 29 to come out and talk. You have a feeling, though, that if Jun-ho did come out and talk, he wouldn't talk too much, he'd get shot. The front man then enters the records room, and he knows that number 29 has been there. And in fact, Jun-ho is still there. He's got his gun ready to fire if the front man gets too close. But the front man gets a radio message telling him that they found a body on a corner of the island, and it's got a police ID. When Jun-ho had dumped number 29's actual body, he stuffed his police ID in there, and it was a good move. This act of genius has bought him a little bit of time. The front man takes off to go inspect this body, look at the ID, and as he's doing so, he gets word that the VIPs have arrived. He instructs the workers to incinerate the body, get rid of any trace of it, as he heads back to tend to the VIPs. The front man heads in, and he goes to address somebody that is wearing a cat-like mask covered in maybe diamonds. I'd say it's bedazzled, but whatever it is, it's gaudy as hell. And he lets that person know that the VIPs have arrived. And the VIPs are all wearing similar masks. They're not bedazzled, but they're silver, and they all look like a different animal. You've got a leopard, a tiger, etc. The front man goes to greet them, and he introduces himself as the front man. He tells all the VIPs that he oversees the operations of the facility, but all they care about is where the host is. And the front man explains that some urgent business has him preoccupied at the moment. The front man assures him that the remaining games will happen as scheduled, no one will be disappointed, and then he escorts them to where they'll watch the 5th game. Their viewing area is ridiculous. It's shaped like a jungle. You've got workers who are acting as tables and footstools. But right as they enter, the one VIP, who I think he's some kind of jungle cat. I don't know, folks. I didn't study animals in college. Anyway, this guy flips out because the one contestant he bet $1 million on committed suicide during the night. This guy had partnered with his wife in the last game. His wife ended up dying, and he couldn't live without her. So now this VIP is out $1 million. He's not too upset about it because he's got a ton of money. And the VIP experience includes free food and booze. That's cool. But one of the guys that's going to be handing out the alcohol is Jun Ho. He had intercepted one of the servers, knocked him out, tied him up, and took his outfit. He enters the room. He starts surveying the landscape, but he quickly gets some unwanted attention from the VIP with the jungle cat mask. Jun Ho would rather stand off in the shadows, but this guy won't let him. He demands that Jun Ho be his personal bartender for the night, and Jun Ho has no choice but to do that. The VIPs then settle in to watch the 5th game. There's only 16 contestants left, and this game is going to quickly whittle them down. This game will also be one that the VIPs are going to bet on, and they're very familiar with it. As the contestants enter the waiting area, they're instructed to go and pick a vest. There's 16 vests, and they're numbered 1 through 16. They have no idea what the numbers indicate, but right away, the middle numbers go quick. Seong is really torn about what to do. He doesn't know whether he should choose the latter numbers or the early numbers. And the more he thinks about it, the more his options get whittled down. He's about to choose number 1 when a guy comes up to him and begs him for the first number. He explains to Seong that he's never really been able to take charge of his life. And if he's going to die, he wants just one time for him to make the call. He wants number 1. He wants Seong to just walk away. Seong says, yeah, okay, man, you can have it, because they still don't know what the numbers mean. So Seong decides to take the number 16, the last number. It ends up being the best decision, as Seong completely lucks out. Because when they get out to see what the game is, number 1 is the worst number to get. Because the 5th game is glass stepping stones. There's 2 panes of glass that the contestant needs to step on. One will hold their weight. It'll actually hold 2 people's weight. But the other one, you're falling to your death. So the first guy to go, he's likely to die. The odds of him making it all the way to the end are slim to none. He's basically going to be a sacrificial lamb. The last person to go has the best odds, because at this point, a lot of people will sacrifice their lives so you know which pane of glass to step on. For the VIPs, they had to make their bets before the contestants took their vests. So now it's a matter of just waiting to see who ends up winning some money and who doesn't. The game is going to take 16 minutes. The first guy is kind of forced to go, and the first pane of glass he steps on holds his weight, but the second one, guy dies. The second guy, it's much of the same. And the people in the back, they're getting anxious because the clock is ticking down and they need to get to the end before the clock reaches 0. So somebody at the front who's taking their sweet time deciding which pane of glass to step on is not ideal. As the contestants, though, make their way through the course, the Jungle Cat VIP is getting way too acquainted with Jun Ho. He tells Jun Ho to take off his mask, but Jun Ho refuses to. He knows that if he takes off his mask, the front man, who is over in the corner watching all of this, is going to come over and kill him. So he tells the VIP, let's go somewhere private. And the VIP completely abandons the game because this guy thinks, he's going to get some. It's pretty gross. This guy strips down naked, and he tells Jun Ho that if Jun Ho takes care of him, he'll change his life. And Jun Ho takes care of him all right. While on his knees, he grabs this guy's balls and brings him to the ground. He then puts the gun to his head and records the VIP telling the camera everything he knows about what is going on in the Squid Game. When Jun Ho gets what he wants, he knocks the VIP out and he tries to escape, grabbing one of the dive packs. Shortly thereafter, one of the workers ends up noticing that the VIP has collapsed, and he radios the front man. He tells him that the VIP will be fine, but he's pretty sure it's the intruder. So now the front man, in the middle of the game, has that to worry about. As for the game, that's reached a little bit of a stalemate when it gets to contestant 101. The Kingpin is up front, and he's got a few panes of glass to go. He certainly doesn't want to risk his life, so he tells the group, somebody better get up here and start walking, or else we're all dying. He's completely ready to play chicken with everybody, and he's got a lot of people behind him. This is when contestant 212 finally gets her revenge. She agrees to go first, but when she steps on the pane of glass that has 101, she wraps her arms around his waist, and she's not letting go. She reminds him that they agreed to stick together right till the end, and for her, the end is now. She leans back, and they both go through the next pane of glass to their death. But it opens up the pathway for everybody else to start making their way towards the finish line. For the next guy at the front, he's actually a glass expert. He worked in a glass factory, and he knows what to look for with tempered glass as opposed to the regular stuff that will send them to their death. So one by one, everybody starts making their way through the course thanks to this guy. But the VIPs notice that this guy has some kind of edge, and when the front man looks, he confirms, yeah, he worked in a glass factory. Let me change it up a little bit. Let me turn the lights out so he can't tell the difference. When this happens, the only indication the guy has is to hear the glass. He needs something to throw at the glass so he can hear the ping. Luckily, Seung still has the marble. When the guy throws it on the one pane of glass, he hears it. The problem is he needs something else to throw on the other pane of glass so he can tell which one is tempered and which one isn't. And time is quickly running out. Sang-woo, he's not ready to wait for this guy to figure out which one's tempered and which one isn't. He shocks everybody by pushing this guy to a pane of glass which breaks and sends the guy to his death. He kind of had to, though. There's only like 12 seconds left. And everybody's surprised, but when they look up and see 12 seconds, they know that they have to get through the course as quickly as possible. And that was the last pane of glass, so at this point, it's just taking a few steps. Sang-woo, Seung, and Sabyak all make it to the end, just in the nick of time. And when the clock hits 0, all the panes of glass explode, sending shards of glass their way. Now with the game over, the frontman is able to focus on Jun-ho, who was unaware that when he stole that dive pack, the dive pack had a tracking device. So the frontman knows exactly where he's going and where he can find Jun-ho. In episode 8, Jun-ho was able to take that dive pack to a close island. As soon as he gets off, he pulls out his cell phone, which he kept in a waterproof bag. He's trying to reach a signal so he can call the police station and get people to this location to shut this game down. He's having problem reaching a signal on the shore, so he heads up to the mountaintop. But as he's going up, he notices that the front man, along with a bunch of triangles, have arrived. So time is of the essence. He hides off. He is able to make an outgoing call to the chief of police, and he lets him know what's going on. Chief's a little concerned because Jun-ho has been missing for a couple days, but Jun-ho says, no, Chief, you got to get people to my location immediately. Coast Guard, cops, Air Force, Navy, Army, whatever, just get them here right away. I'm southwest of the mainland. You got to locate my signal. The police chief is really confused on what's going on, so Jun-ho says, I'll send over everything I've got. And he starts to try to text over the files that he accumulated during research. The pictures, the videos, everything that would explain what kind of situation he's currently in. The problem is the signal sucks. So every time he tries to send over a file, it's not working. Meanwhile, the front man and his men are getting closer and closer to Jun-ho's location. As Jun-ho tries to run through the forest to evade them, he gets to the point where he's at the edge of a cliff with nowhere else to go. He's cornered. He pulls a gun and demands that all the triangles put down their weapons. He introduces himself as a police officer, but he knows that he's screwed because he's completely outgunned in this situation, and these people clearly don't value human life. When the front man shows up, Jun-ho tells him that the police are on their way, but the front man doesn't believe it. He knows that the Korean police are generally pretty slow to react, and he also knows that with the location of the island, it's probably unlikely he was able to send over any kind of evidence as to what's going on. So he calls Jun-ho's bluff. Jun-ho, though, isn't giving up. He tells the front man if he turns himself in, he might be able to get a plea bargain. And the front man is being unusually compassionate. He tells Jun-ho that if he puts his weapon down, they might actually let him live. The front man, though, continues to walk closer to Jun-ho, and finally Jun-ho, using the final bullet in his gun, fires it at the front man and hits him in the shoulder. The front man's hurt, but he still doesn't command any of his workers to shoot Jun-ho. He tells Jun-ho, "Come with me, or else you're going to die." It finally dawns on Jun-ho that he should already be dead. So he asks the front man, "Who are you?" And when the front man finally takes off his mask, he reveals that he's Jun-ho's brother. That's why he was being so compassionate. He didn't want to kill Jun-ho. The front man figured that maybe revealing his identity to Jun-ho would get him to come with him, but it doesn't. Jun-ho's more in shock than anything. The front man at this point has given Jun-ho plenty of opportunities to turn himself in, so he pulls out a gun. And right before he shoots him, Jun-ho asks him, "Why?" But the front man answers with a slug in his chest. The front man and his people then head back to the island, where the contestants, the remaining ones, have arrived back in the barracks. Seong is pretty disgusted at what Sang-woo did. And Sang-woo reminds Seong that they'd all be dead had he not thrown that guy through the pane of glass. The way that Sang-woo looks at it, Seong should be thanking him because they need somebody like him out there who's not afraid to get a little blood on his hands. They start arguing about it, and then the conversation gets pretty personal with the insults. It only gets broken up when workers come in to give each remaining contestant a box with a tuxedo in it. They announce that because they made it through the first 5 games, they've prepared a special gift for each of them. Sa-byeok, though, isn't there to hear this because she's in the bathroom trying to clean herself up. She is badly injured. When all that glass broke, she got a nice big chunk right in her abdomen, and she's bleeding profusely. She tries to patch it up, but you get a feeling that it's not going to be all that easy to patch this wound up. It's pretty deep. She's going to try to conceal it, and later on, all 3 of them head to see what this special gift is. And the gift is a nice steak dinner. Sa-byeok is clearly laboring because as Sang-woo and Seong polish off their steaks, Sa-byeok has barely touched hers when they take the steak away. They take the plate, they take the fork, but all the workers leave everybody with one steak knife just sitting there. When they head back to the barracks that night, most of them aren't sleeping. They're just sitting in their bed, clutching that knife, waiting for a possible attack. Really, though, it's just waiting for an attack from one person. It's Seong and Sa-byeok waiting to see if they're attacked by Sang-woo, who at this point doesn't give a rat's ass about anybody but advancing in the game. So he's the threat. Seong has noticed that Sa-byeok is not holding up too well, so he wants to go over and kind of form an alliance with her. He knows that together they should be able to take out Sang-woo. And while he can't hear the conversation, Sang-woo can clearly see that the two are talking, and he knows the conversation is not to his benefit. And they are talking about taking him out and sharing the prize money. And Sa-byeok asks, "Do you know what you're going to do with all that money once we do get out?" And Seong says, "Yeah, I'll pay my debt off, I'll buy a nice store for my mom, and then I'll finally start to be a real dad to my little girl." Sa-byeok asks Seong, "How old's your little girl?" And when Seong says she's 10, Sa-byeok shocks him by saying, "That's how old my little brother is." And she tells Seong the story about how she's trying to win the money to get her parents over from North Korea while her little brother sits in an orphanage currently because she can't afford to get him out. An agreement is met in that moment, but the agreement is if one of them makes it out and the other doesn't, then the one that made it out will take care of the loved ones. It was proposed by Sa-byeok, who knows that her likelihood of making it out is slim to none at this point because she's continued to bleed out. She wants to make sure that if she dies, her little brother will be taken care of. And Seong agrees. Shortly after agreeing, Seong looks over and sees that Sang-woo is fallen asleep. He's about to creep over there and kill him, but Sabiak stops him and says, "That isn't you." And Seong knows that she's right. That's when Sabiak collapses over. The blood loss has gotten too much. And when Seong sees just how much blood she's lost, he tries to get help for her, screaming, causing a scene, trying to get the workers to come in and patch her up so she can finish the game. Finally, the lights do come on, and workers come in, but they're not here to help Sabiak because they're holding a casket. And when Seong turns around, he sees that Sang-woo is standing over Sabiak's body. Sang-woo killed her. Seong is enraged. He goes to attack Sang-woo, but the workers stop him. Because with only 2 people remaining, they still need to finish this game. In episode 9, it is now time for the final game. And Seong wants vengeance for everything that Sang-woo did. Up until this point, he had made excuses for the guy. He grew up with him, but killing Sabiak was the final straw. The final game is going to be Squid Game. And I'm not going to bore you with the details of the game because honestly, it doesn't even matter. It's a children's game, and all the VIPs are watching it. The front man has arrived. He explains the rules of the game to the VIPs who have bet on it. But shortly after the game starts, it begins to rain. The rain causes a very slippery court. And while normally this is a physical game, because of the bad blood between these two, it becomes even more physical. Seong, who is an offensive player and probably could easily win the game if he wanted to, abandons the rules of the game just to take it to Sang-woo. I mean, he really wants to make this dude pay for killing Sabiak. With the conditions being the way they are, though, both men get badly injured. But when push comes to shove, Seong is too much for Sang-woo. And Seong lets all that bottled up rage inside of him, he lets it out. He beats Sang-woo to a pulp. He could kill him. He could stab him and be done with this thing, win the prize money. But instead, he stabs the ground and he starts to walk towards the finish line. At this point, the VIPs have accepted the fact that number 456 is going to win. But then Seong does something incredible. He stops. He walks up to the worker and reminds him that Clause 3 says if the majority agree to stop the game, then they have to stop the game. The VIPs, the front man, the workers, no one can believe that this guy is this close to billions of dollars and yet he's willing to walk away from it. But he is. Because deep down, Seong isn't a killer. And he doesn't want to see Sang-woo die, even though Sang-woo did what he did. For Sang-woo, this is the only option he has to survive. If he says no, Seong walks over to the designated area and he wins the game, and Sang-woo gets shot. Because of that, it seems like a no-brainer. But Sang-woo shocks everybody by stabbing himself in the throat with a knife and telling Seong, "Just take care of my mother," guaranteeing that Seong would walk away with that money. Shortly after the game, Seong is patched up, he's blindfolded, and he's sitting in a limo with the front man. The front man congratulates him, but Seong doesn't feel like a winner. He's definitely going through survivor's guilt. To make him feel better, the front man reminds Seong that he bets on horses. And it's the same on the island, but the difference is they bet on humans. The big difference is Seong is a big winner. And he should be happy about it. But still, this little pep talk doesn't make him feel better. Seong demands to know who the front man is, but the front man just decides to gas him. And when they arrive back on the mainland, the limo pulls over and just dumps Seong's body onto the sidewalk. When Seong eventually wakes up, he does head to the ATM. He decides to see if the money is in his account. And he's a little surprised because it is. All the money that they promised is in there. He's a billionaire. He slowly makes his way back home, shuffling his feet through the market when Sang-woo's mother stops him. She hasn't seen him in a few days, and by the looks of him, he looks like he's been through hell. She just assumes he's been on a drinking binge, but little does she know that he's been through a war. She runs into her storefront to grab some food for Seong's mother. She also hasn't seen her in a few days and feels like she probably came down with something. Maybe some food can help. Seung goes to pay her, but the woman insists it's fine. Just give your mom any cash you got. She needs it more than I do. Right before Seung heads off, Sang-woo's mother asks him, have you heard from Sang-woo at all? But Seung doesn't answer, and she doesn't really prod for a response. She's still under the impression that her son has gone off to avoid creditors. When Seung finally does reach home, he finds that his mother has passed away in his absence. 1 year later, Seung's life has not changed for the better. Yeah, he's a billionaire, but he certainly doesn't live like it. He hasn't invested anything. He still lives in that small apartment that him and his mom were living in. In fact, he looks more homeless than anything. And that's because a year later, he's still dealing with survivor's guilt. Even the bank is concerned because he's got all this money, but he hasn't done anything with it. They actually call him in for a meeting, but he's not interested in taking any of their financial advice. In fact, he shocks the guy by saying, hey, can I borrow 10,000 won? And the banker, confused, gives it to him because that bank can't afford to lose Seung's money. But Seung takes it, and he just goes down to the river and drinks alone. While he's staring off into the city, a woman walks up to him and begs him to buy some flowers from her. She needs to get rid of them that night or they're going to wilt away. And Seung hands over the 10,000 won that he borrowed for one flower. But the flower came with a card. And that card has a square, a circle, and a triangle on it. And when Seung flips to the back, the card reads, December 24th, 11:30 p.m., Sky Building, 7th floor. From your Ganbu. Seung is very confused. He heads to that building, and it turns out there is only one floor you can go to, and it is the 7th floor. And when Seung arrives, he is shocked because there is the old man sitting in a hospital bed on a ventilator. Seung demands to get some answers, but the old man points out the window to a homeless guy laying on the ground outside. He says, let's play a game. That guy's going to freeze to death if he stays out there any longer. So if that man remains out there until midnight, which is in 25 minutes, I win. But if anyone helps that old man, then you win. Seung, however, doesn't want to play a game. He wants answers. He wants to know why the old man did what he did. He wants to know who the old man is. He wants to know why he survived and nobody else did. The old man tells him if he agrees to play the game, then he'll explain himself. And Seung says, okay, fine, I'll agree. The two men then wait to see if anybody helps this old man outside. While they wait, the old man tries to explain himself. He tells Seung that he's made a living lending out money. He then asks the old man, why did you send the card? And the old man says, I heard that all the money you won is just sitting there. Is that all just because you feel guilty? That money's yours now. That cash is your reward. You have every right to use it now. Seung then asks him why he did all of this. The old man returns his question with a question. Do you know what someone with no money has in common with someone with too much? Living is no fun for either of them. If you have too much money, everything gets boring. And every time I talk to one of my clients, they felt the same way. There was no joy in their life anymore. So we all decided to get together. We concocted this idea to finally have some fun. Seung is pissed off when he hears that word, fun, because it wasn't fun for him. But the old man reminds him, you forgot that no one forced you to play. And in fact, you left and you decided to come back. You signed over your rights. You did that, not us. This was your choice. As they're sitting there, though, the clock is quickly ticking down. There are only minutes remaining until midnight, and the guy outside has not been helped yet. The old man asks Seung, tell me, do you still trust in humanity being good? But Seung ignores what he said and asks, I want to know why you joined us in the game. The old man explains that when he was a child, he had so much fun playing with his friends. He wanted to feel something one last time before he died. Because that tumor, that is real, and it has gotten bigger. He knew that he wasn't going to get that feeling if he just watched the game, so he decided to participate. He tells Seung, thanks to you, I got to remember all these things that I had forgotten. It had been such a long time since I had been able to have that much fun. As he's saying this, Seung isn't even looking at him. His eyes are fixated outside to the homeless guy that is lying on the ground. It's seconds until midnight. And that's when Seung's faith in humanity is restored, because right before the clock bell chimes, somebody comes and helps him. He proudly says to the old man, "Look at that. There's someone who cares." But the old man is dead. Shortly after Seung leaves, the front man comes to check on the body. After this conversation with the old man, Seung decides to do what he said. Live his life and enjoy the reward money. He's got big plans and a fresh new haircut. The first thing he does is he makes good on his promise to Sabiak. He goes and he picks up Sabiak's brother from the orphanage. He never tells Sabiak's brother what happened to his big sister, but instead he puts him in a really good home. He delivers him to Sang-woo's mother. He also has loaded up a suitcase full of money to take care of the little boy. And then he heads off, because Sang-woo has a daughter of his own that he has to take care of. He's decided to head to America to visit her. As he hops off the train heading to the airport, he's talking to her, saying, "I'll let you know when I get on the plane. I'm looking forward to seeing you." And then he hears a very familiar sound. It's the sound of the game he was playing that got him into this mess in the first place. And when he looks across the train platform, there's some guy getting slapped. Seung drops his stuff. He rushes over to the platform to catch the guy who is orchestrating the game, but it's too late. When he gets over there, the guy has hopped in the next train and taken off. Seung then turns to the guy who was playing, and he grabs the card from him. He tells him, "You're not going." As he's sitting in the airport terminal, he's just staring at the card. And finally, right before he boards the plane, curiosity gets the best of him, so he decides to call the number. He gives his information just like he did the first time, only this time he has a message. He tells the person on the other end, "I am not a horse. I am a person. That's why I want to know who you people are." But that's when the front man jumps on the phone and says, "Player 456, don't get any absurd ideas. Just get on that plane. It's for your own good." But Seung hangs up, and he doesn't get on the plane. Seung hangs up and turns around. And that is the end of Season 1 of Squid Games. Thank you so much for getting to this part of the recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel. Hit thumbs up if you like this. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought this recap sucked. If you did think it sucks, though, just hit the thumbs down button. You don't have to go to the comment section and make a nasty comment, because those, they make me feel bad, and I'm baby poop soft. Hey, I have merch. Go buy a t-shirt. Go buy a mug, Help me get over the poverty line. That'd be cool. But just know, I do appreciate you guys at least getting to this part of the recap.